Good evening, everyone. I am Amanda Benjamin.
And I'm Paul Carganilla, and we welcome you to our mystifying show in which we explore mysteries of the unknown.
In this live stream and podcast, we'll tell tales of the paranormal and unsolved while mixing in a little fun and live music as well.
In tonight's episode, we will be exploring the puzzling and cryptic topic of mysterious vanishings.
Welcome to the Magical Mystery Hour.
If you are listening to the audio podcast of this episode, we invite you to find this show on our YouTube channel, the Vaudacity Network, where you can view any images or videos we share throughout these stories and see our faces as well.
If you are already subscribed to the Vaudacity Network on YouTube, but it's a challenge to find the time to sit down and watch each episode, this live stream will be released as an audio podcast.
That's right. So be sure to subscribe to Magical Mystery Hour wherever you consume your podcasts.
This episode is sponsored by two wonderful show supporters, Emily Thatcher and Kelsey Blaine Gibson.
Emily has a very, very poignant Tyler Perry quote that she wanted to bring to us today, and I failed to load it into the script. So
Oh no! I'm gonna cut this part.
It's behind the scenes. This
Oh, no.
is the magic, and that was. I guess we were talking a lot today. Thank you for your patience, everybody.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
just
there it
trying to
is.
load the live chat. Hi, everybody.
And rewind. Emily would.
Take 3.
Emily wanted to bring us a very special and poignant Tyler Perry quote this evening. She says, "Chasing your dreams can be like walking through a maze. When you hit a brick wall, it doesn't mean stop. It means go another way. Sometimes you have to take a few steps back to find the right path, but you will get to your goal if you keep going." Love it.
That's great. Thank you, Emily. And Kelsey's message is, I love sponsoring this podcast because of the friendship and stories that are told with incredible dedication and making sure that you don't miss any single detail.
Yes, thank you, Emily and Kelsey.
All right. Well, then, we're going to get started with this show.
This disappearing act that is sometimes life, I suppose.
Yeah, right? Sometimes things just slip away and you don't even realize it happened.
That sounds very dark and cryptic and sad.
But it's
Like-
true. Like, just the passage of time, like, you don't even realize, like, you put down this hobby or, you stopped, I don't know, singing or you stopped, whatever it is. And you don't even realize until, years later and you're like, wow, I used to do that. Like, hopefully you always find yourself again.
If you're following your heart, you should find yourself at your true north destination. But yeah, we're talking more like, so what we have this challenge every time we finish an episode. We
Yes.
go, what's the next episode going to be?
Every time.
Beyond ghosts and aliens, it's always just like, what should we talk about next time? And you brought up Vanishing. Why?
Ooh, I did, because there's this kind of story that's always fascinated me since I was younger, and I was like, oh, and it involves vanishing, something that just seemed to disappear off the face of the earth, and nobody knows why or how exactly. And so I was thinking, well, like, how can I talk about this thing that happened? And I was like, they vanished. And I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
that is a good topic. I like it.
And as everybody out there knows who's heard any episodes before, we mix live music with our storytelling. We each play a solo throughout the episodes, and then we finish the episode with a duet. And I don't know what Amanda's story is. She gave me some hints.
Yes.
But it's also very difficult to find songs and music that it is about someone vanishing.
Right? I mean, there
So
are like love songs like "You Left Me," but that's kind of borderline. Either you're like, can I make this work?
well,
Especially for my topic. My topic is quite difficult, I would say.
my story tonight is about a gentleman who vanished, and if anybody remembers the epic Ray Rivera episode we did,
Such a good one.
there's a lot of similarities, and a lot of times you're just thinking about, or I was just thinking about the people left behind,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's kind of where I decided to go with my tune,
I like it.
and um, Amanda just said it's kind of stretching the
We have to do a lot of
theme.
stretching for some of these themes because it's like we were talking about that on our little chat ahead of time because we were like, what song do we? This is a good topic. What song do we pick?
It's always, and it was the last thing I figured out tonight. But here is a tune from the either I want to say early 2000s, maybe, from a rock band called Three Doors Down, and it's a person who's left behind. It's called Here Without You.
All right. I can't wait to hear it.
A 100 days have made me older since the last time that I saw your pretty face. A 1,000 lies have made me colder, and I don't think I can look at this the same. But all the miles that separate disappear now when I'm dreaming of your face. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, baby, and I dream about you all the time. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still with me in my dreams. And tonight, there's only you and me. The miles keep on rolling as the people leave their way to say hello. I've heard this life is overrated, but I hope that it gets better as we go. Here without you, baby, but you're still on my lonely mind. I think about you, baby, and I dream about you all the time. I'm here without you, baby, but you're still with me in my dreams. And tonight, there's only you and me.
Yay! We need some applause. was like waiting for a pause. And I was like, wait a minute. That's Paul's to do. I need to do that.
Oh, wait, wrong button. I have to find it. There it is. Okay. I just yesed myself. It's fine.
That's what she said.
Oh.
Speaking of stretching.
Explicit.
And we're kicked off.
That's a producer Craig can say it in the chat, but I think that's like a mid-aughts alt rock song. Three Doors Down, or is that late 90s? Is Three Doors Down late 90s? It's probably
I can't even remember.
mid-aughts. I don't know.
Man. The aughts. I love it because it sounds so old-timey.
The aughts.
We're in the aughts.
So yeah, I am intrigued by the facts that you have shared with me about your tale, but I'm excited to hear, since this story is something that you've been wanting to tell and inspired this theme this week, this month.
Yes.
Can
you imagine if we did these weekly?
No. It's a lot of work.
It's so much work. It's a lot. Even before you even start writing, just even the thinking, it's a lot.
Well, it's the learning.
Like,
you
got to go through it.
And
then
gaining all of the knowledge and then writing your own version of it to share.
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
And you get to the point where it's 2:00 in the morning the night before and you realize you need to record a duet.
True.
And you don't know what song you're going to do.
And then you change your mind.
Yeah. And then you're eating dinner an hour before the show and you go, oh, I don't know what my solo song is going to be.
Yeah, it's
all
a
right,
lot.
Paul. Stop telling people how much you don't prepare for the show.
We'll make that a subscription only, behind the scenes.
Right. Craig Jackman says Three Doors Down was a 1996-ish band.
Really?
So, yeah, I guess it was. I mean, who knows when they put out that song?
Right. But still, okay.
Who knows how long they lasted in the pan.
Yeah.
Flash in the pan is something that's really popular for a minute and then it's gone. Speaking of things that are gone, Amanda Benjamin has a story for us.
That was such a good segue.
Thank you.
All right. Let me get my little background music up because I love to have background music. All right. Here we go. As a child, I had a boundless curiosity for knowledge. It was sometimes insatiable. Like, I always just wanted to understand how things worked and how they came to be, why. And it extended to what is our history. So while other kids played games revolving around their favorite TV show characters, I would imagine what it was like to be a citizen of ancient Egypt, or maybe dining on the Titanic before it met its fateful end. I loved Titanic. Oh man, I was fascinated.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. It's true. I even loved history books, whether it was like historical fiction or like those pictographic stories, they used to have all the time from like something like a Discovery Channel type of thing book they would put out about ancient civilizations. And I'd just be hooked from page one. And
do you remember they used to have, and they still do, I didn't realize it, but they still do, they have like National Geographic magazines. I know like back then it was so subscription based, but now you just like, you're standing in line at the grocery store and you see one and it's like they have these incredible pictures of like things you wouldn't expect to see every day, but that capture your attention and your imagination, just as you are speaking about right now.
Yeah, we used to sit in the library, my friend and I, and we would read these books. There was one we loved about mummies, and you would see all these different mummies from different cultures, and we just imagine what it was like. You guys remember Alika from early episode 1, I think. She's on here. So we used to sit in our school library and read those books and then talk about, reminds me of this, or I wonder if they were like that. So something we just like to do.
Yeah, Alika shared some really awesome ghost stories from a theater that she's working on, or was working with, in our ghost story.
Yeah, go check out that episode. It's great.
Yes.
So I would pick up these books and just be hooked right from page 1. And I especially loved diving headlong into the rich tapestry of America's history. The stories of the early colonists captured my imagination, and I just spent hours and hours imagining what life was like in that bygone era. With wide-eyed wonder, I delved into the world of the Native Americans. I was fascinated by their ancient customs and their profound connection with the natural world. Their reverence for Mother Nature spoke to my heart and no doubt shaped the passion for the environment that I carry today. As I took in their lessons about their harmonious existence with the land, a deep admiration from their culture just blossomed. And in the small classroom of my elementary school, I was transfixed as my teachers told tales of these Native American tribes, lending a hand to the earliest American settlers. Their knowledge of the land and their refined skills, their generous and caring spirit just created a bridge between these two strikingly different cultures. And without those Native Americans and their benevolent nature, we would not be here today. So these encounters that I was learning about just sparked that curiosity again. Just kept growing and growing, and I was filled with questions about these pivotal moments in histories when these two cultures collided, when they mingled. And as the years passed and I grew older, the pieces of the puzzle started revealing themselves and they began to fall into place. The haunting tale I'm about to tell you reveals the complexity that intertwined the lives of these early colonists and Native Americans. It wasn't always harmonious. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always pretty. But it's our history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people killing each other in our history.
It's terrible. I always hope someday we're going to, it seems like we're always making strides. And someday we'll be able to, move past those times. It's easy to forget how actually recent these things are in our timeline. Because to us, we're like, oh, God, that was generations ago. But in the grand scheme of things, they're actually not that far away. And we're still feeling the effects from all of these pieces of history.
Today, for anybody listening to the podcast, we're recording this on June 12th, and it's Philippines Independence Day, and they're celebrating their 125th year this year. Yes. And it's wild to me to think that it was only 125 years ago that there were just these huge battlefield wars to gain land. And it was like the Spaniards, the Japanese, the Americans all fighting for this land. And it seems like for those of us who are, I'm middle-aged, I'm in my 40s, and I feel like when I was growing up, it was like storybook stuff. And now that I'm in my 40s, I just think 125 years ago is not that long ago. No. But yeah, it's all stuff that really happened, and happened a lot more recently than a lot of times our brains let us realize.
Yeah, it's true. So this story is a story of lost settlers, and there are multitudes of unanswered questions surrounding their fate. And it creates a web of intrigue that just pulled me right back into that history that I adore. And in researching the story, I realized the profound impact that these encounters have had in shaping the cultural landscape of America. The clashing of opposing civilizations, the melding of traditions, and the enduring legacies that we leave behind create the tapestry of our shared human history. And the thread of this mystery is baffling and perplexing. And it is, in fact, the oldest unsolved mystery of the United States of America.
Ooh.
This is the story of the lost colony of Roanoke Island. Now, the Roanoke colony sat nestled upon the windswept shores of Roanoke Island off the shore of North Carolina. And it's the location of one of the most mysterious tales in America, as I've said. It's going to leave you just wishing that you could go back in time and find those answers. So the story begins in 1587, when a band of English settlers, led by the intrepid John White. Who's this guy?
John White.
Yes, White.
Not to be confused with John Smith.
No, lots of Johns in our history.
Yeah.
So this band of settlers embarked on a perilous journey across the Atlantic Ocean. So they went across the Atlantic Ocean and they sought to establish a foothold in the vast and untamed New World. They wanted to forge a new chapter in human history. There had been a previously unsuccessful settlement in Roanoke, but they sought to correct those mistakes. First of all, in this new venture, they decided not to go to Roanoke at all. They were making the same kind of settlement, but they decided to go to the nearby Chesapeake Bay rather than the island of Roanoke, because they had basically a small military outpost there. Again, very unsuccessful. They all had to leave. They evacuated after low food supplies, everything just kind of went wrong. And then relations with the Native Americans fell apart. So they left and they said, this time we're going to do it right. We're making the same idea, but again, we're going to Chesapeake Bay. Chesapeake Bay had deeper waters, which was safer for boat travel. Okay. Roanoke had very shallow waters and was known to sink boats. So it was also further from some of the Native American tribes, right, that I just said their relations had soured. The really big turning point was when the English settlers started to spread an epidemic through the Native community. They started to believe that they were actually like killing them from a distance with some kind of invisible bullets, right? Because we didn't understand pandemics and epidemics back then. So with that, right, then it's like these people are here to eliminate us, right? They're a bad, evil force. So again, it fell apart and they left. So this location was just all around better. Great. The group also believed that bringing their families with them rather than military force, along with more supplies to start, all of these things were going to be the key, right, to creating a thriving civilization. Yeah. However, their plans were doomed from the start. Oh, no. They had a very experienced navigator, and that navigator made the decision to actually return to the Roanoke Island settlement rather than continue to the safer Chesapeake Bay. Nobody really knows why this happened, but he was, again, really experienced, even more than the boat captain, more than John White. So when he said, we're going to Roanoke, everybody went, okay, and fell in line. So we don't know why, but it had to be the right decision.
He does him.
Yeah. So upon arriving at Roanoke, the group was set with immediate adversities. They were well aware of the circumstances of the previous inhabitants. Roanoke also sits in between a line of barrier islands along the Northern Carolina coast. So it's actually less visible and less approachable by ships that are coming in from the ocean. They settled on Roanoke to avoid detection by the Spanish, who had actually already pretty much claimed all the land in the area. So they were like, yeah, this is Spanish territory, but we're going to settle here. Nobody will notice us, okay?
I'd like to just mention, because as she's telling the story, I don't know anything about geography, so I always have to look it up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at the map, and as she said, I'm looking at Roanoke right now, and it's, as it is right now, it's surrounded by like a belt of highways linking the islands on the outside apart. So I can imagine as Spanish ships are coming in, it's kind of hidden because
Yes.
there's kind of a shield of smaller islands along the edge.
And I think I have this. Yes, I do. So if you can kind of see this map, Roanoke is this kind of island almost in the middle, right? And then you actually have this island. So you can see they're all, at the time, they're all named after their tribes, right? So like Croatoans over here. And so you can see that ring of islands all around it, right? So you have to go in these really narrow channels, which is why it's dangerous to get in. Because you can see this little opening kind of on the right side. You got to sail through there and then get over to Roanoke, right? Again, so it's dangerous and difficult to get into. You can't really see because of the other islands. So if you're trying to avoid detection by the Spanish, it's a good spot.
Yeah, and this is like it today on Google Maps. Roanoke's, you see it's this island here, and then completely surrounded by like highway.
Yeah.
That links those islands, bridges and highway. It's clearly just like a hidden little fortress, it seems like, against ships.
Yeah. I said there's very narrow ways to get in. It's difficult, which is, again, why they decided we'll be safer there. Yeah. Like I said, Chesapeake Bay would have been safer to get in and out of, but that could be part of the reason they decided against it. Who knows? But right away, besides having a change of location, they had a hard time taming the land for the production of crops. So they started to once again cultivate a friendly relationship with the local native tribes that offered to share their crops with them. So a lot of them really did still harbor resentment to them, but there were a few, like the Croatoan, who were actually much friendlier, and they, again, offered them food, offered to show them, ways to plant everything. But food supplies did start to dwindle. And more relationships, once again, started to wither. And soon, the Native Americans noticed that wherever the Europeans went, death soon followed. So again, they knew that they would bring with them some kind of death, those epidemics, those diseases that just weren't around. So as this started to happen again, they decided, no, we can't do this again, right? So all these things are trying to, are already causing difficulties for them. But let's go back a little bit, because this happened the first time. And when they got to Roanoke, these second settlers, again, when they got to Roanoke, now they have to revitalize this abandoned fort, right? Because it's been abandoned for a while. So they went in and they found it to be in a state. Okay. And what they found there in front of some of the doors was a pile of human bones.
What?
Yes. So when they remembered that when the first wave of settlers left Roanoke, they actually left behind 15 people because they couldn't make it in time from wherever they were to the boat to evacuate. So whether this had been one of those 15 settlers or whether they had been killed due to hostile natives, starvation, disease, many people saw this greeting as a very bad omen. But,
yeah.
So, however, they're here. So the colonization continued.
Okay.
And we already talked about this. The resources started to dwindle, right? Again, those relationships.
When you don't have food, people tend to get grumpy.
Yeah, big time. Yikes. So as they noticed that their supplies are dwindling faster than they had planned for, they realized that they were heading into a drought. They asked John White, please go back to England. Get us more supplies. Bring more people. This will help us. And White was reluctant to leave the colony. He's the governor of this colony, and his people are suffering. And he thought he would be more helpful to them there. Also, he brought with him his daughter, Eleanor Dare, And if you know anything like about the East Coast or anything, Dare is a really common name in our history. And there's like Dare County, all kinds of things. Just so you know. But so he brought Eleanor Dare, who, when the journey started, had been pregnant. Eleanor Dare gave birth to the very first English-born child in America. Okay, so she was named Virginia Dare. So it's the painting they have of her born, being christened.
That's a huge first. If you're gonna be a first something, like be a first of your bloodline born in a country, that's pretty cool.
Yes. So with his daughter there, his now granddaughter, again, the first European American, how can he leave? Again, he's the governor. These people are his responsibility. But finally, the colonists convinced him he was their only chance for survival. So it was with a heavy heart that John White acquiesced and departed for England, intending to return swiftly with aid and provisions to bolster the faltering colony. But destiny had other plans for White and the colonists.
Oh, of course it did.
When White returned to England, he found a country on the precipice of war with Spain and its renowned armada. Due to this, the Queen ordered that no ships would depart from England for the duration of the war. Years slipped by like whispers in the wind, while White tried desperately to return to Roanoke to no avail. Finally, 3 years later in 1590, he contracted 2 small ships called the Brave and the Roe, which were unfit for military service, so they could actually leave. The Queen said, fine, they can go. They'll make it to Roanoke, but they can't fight. Take it. Unfortunately, the ships were victimized by French pirates and robbed of their supplies. So the journey had to be abandoned and they returned home. White cursed his luck, believing that he had been born under a bad star. But he still continued on his quest to return to the New World. Oh, I know. Then finally, in March 1590, with the immediate threat of a Spanish invasion abated, White's rescue expedition could finally begin. 2 ships called the Hopewell and the Moonlight set sail for Roanoke.
Sorry, how long has it been?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So he, at long last, in the summer, set foot upon the shores that had held his friends and family. However, what greeted his eyes was a haunting scene of desolation. The once bustling village had seemingly vanished, swallowed by the earth. Weeds took over every inch of the ground, and buildings laid in ruin, as if nature itself had conspired to erase all evidence that human life had even existed there. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by rustling leaves and the distant whisper of the ocean. White took in the sight, wondering what had become of the people he had left behind. Had he made the right choice in leaving? Upon investigating the area, a single cryptic message was found etched upon a post, leaving White bewildered at its meaning. The first word was Croatoan. A second carving was found on another post, which simply said Crow, C-R-O. But what could it mean? What is this? So here's some pictures. So you can see like they found the Croatoan all the way. And then I've seen multiple pictures. I'm not positive if this is a real picture or a recreation because it did not say. But this is how they describe it. It's just the word crow. And even it fills up everything I've seen. The word crow fills up the whole space. Because when I first read about this, I was like, well, they just didn't finish writing Croatoan. But everything I've seen shows that it fills up the whole space that they had carved out for the word.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was left behind.
Do we know what Croatoan?
So Croatoan is the friendly tribe.
Oh. Okay.
The friendly Native American tribe.
Yeah.
And that's all we know. So it could be hinting at the secrets that only the spirits of the deserted island could understand. What happened to those who sought to carve out their destiny on this land? Did they meet their fate at the hands of Native Americans? Were they lost to the unforgiving wilderness? Or did they leave the island when White didn't return with their supplies? At this thought, White remembered that there had been a plan in place. Should the settlers have to leave the island, they would leave a sign as to where they were going, and he could meet them there. That plan was to head about 50 miles inland, north and a bit northeast from Roanoke. But Croatoan Island was to the west, a completely different direction from where they were supposed to go. So maybe they sought refuge with the friendly tribe. They checked out the area that they should have gone to, inland. There was nothing there. So they found, okay, so they did not go inland. Maybe this is a sign they went to Croatoan Island. John White attempted to travel to Croatoan Island. And just so you can see, so Croatoan, you can see, is all the way on the edge of the map. So on our left side of the map, Croatoan is way over there. It'd be a journey. And again, these are dangerous waters, but it is possible, right? Because the Croatoan would come and go. Sure. So he attempted to go to the island 3 times, but he was unsuccessful due to violent storms during the travels. And on the final attempt, the anchor line of the boat snapped, and the captain decided that they could not risk making any more trips. So they returned to England, and all hope of finding the lost colonists was gone in one moment. John White was devastated, but he never gave up hope that his daughter Eleanor and his granddaughter Virginia were still alive. He retired in Ireland, where he continued his art and map making. So I forgot to mention that earlier. He is an artist. He's known for watercolors and map making. So he made all the maps of Roanoke Island and the whole area. But little is actually known about his life after Roanoke. It's said that he was obsessed with his bad fortune, and he died in 1593, only 3 years after his ill-fated return to North America.
Is that dying of a broken heart or dying of like a guilty conscience because you left your family there?
Yeah, and you're the governor, right? They're all your people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be devastating. I can't even imagine that kind of responsibility and what that would feel like. And to be so close to like, I think that they're there, right? I think that's what they're telling me, and you know something in your heart.
Yeah.
And you can't go.
And to try, like you tried 3 times, and every time a violent storm stood in your way. Like,
yeah.
What's up with that?
I know. Like the fates are conspiring. So let's go back and we'll take a look at some of the theories regarding the fate of the Roanoke colonists. The first theory is that the colony was a victim of an attack perpetrated by Native Americans. As we said, the tensions between the local tribes and the Roanoke colony were at an all-time high during the second settlement, and some speculate that the colonists were just attacked and killed by the indigenous population. The Roanoke colony was situated in territory that was inhabited by various tribes, which we've seen in that map, including the Secaucus and the Croatoans. There were many reports of skirmishes and confrontations between the settlers and these tribes, which suggest presence of hostility. Again, the Croatoans were more on their side, but the other ones just were either neutral or were against European settlements at this point. It is also very common at the time for European settlers to attempt to impose their cultural views on the savage Native Americans.
So savage.
So could a culture clash be the reason behind an attack that decimated the colony? The settlers and Native Americans had distinct cultural differences, leading to misunderstandings and potential clashes. So the colonists' attempts to impose their own culture and practices upon the land easily could have been interpreted as an encroachment upon the Native Americans' tribe's way of life. So we can see how this would happen. How many more people would come and claim their sacred land? this animosity could have led to a great disaster. Now, there's also this account in 1607. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. When John Smith was captured by the Powhatan tribe, the chief Powhatan, and yes, in case you did not know, that was Pocahontas's father.
Thank you. Yeah. And John Smith was Pocahontas's partner.
Yes. So this is a drawing of him. And it said that while John Smith was captured, he claimed that his people were responsible for the massacre of the Roanoke people. However, this cannot be taken as truth because it was actually a third-hand account from a biased source. And John Smith himself never even talked about this. So we don't know where it came from exactly. This person claims that John Smith told me that this happened. Did it? It could be another instance of a European blaming a Native American for something that they couldn't explain. It happened all the time back then. We'll never really know. And of course, there were those cryptic messages carved in the post. Croatoan. In addition to that partial word crow that we found on the abandoned settlement. This is just, what does it mean, right? We just go back to that. What does that mean? Is it that they were attacked by Croatoans? Did their relations sour their last bastion of friendly, right? Is that what they're saying? We were attacked by Croatoans. Does it mean we went to Croatoan Island? If they left, why would they not have written more? Right? Why not leave a note that says, we went to Croatoan Island?
That is what is intriguing to me about it, because the first thing I think is, well, if you're going to leave a note, leave a note.
Right? Why leave a puzzle?
Here's the plan. Here's what we're doing. The other thing is, if you're under attack, you're not going to be like, hand me the knife and the axe. I'm going to carve a message in the tree in case he comes back in a few years and can help us out. Hey, keep the enemies at bay. I just finished the sea. John, stop carving and help us. Hang on. I've got to finish the word Croatoan so he knows exactly where we are and where to find us. Like, I don't see that.
Right? That's what I'm talking about. Like,
what's the happy medium between like having a lot of time to explain where you're going and not? And unless it's like almost an identity theft thing where it's just like you want to cover your tracks by not giving away too much information in case someone else is going to come after you.
Right.
But you it's like a secret message because he's going to know what we mean by crow when he comes back. And then he's just like, no, I don't know.
No, I don't get it.
Sorry, guys.
There was actually, in the 1930s, they found these things and they called them the Dare Stones. Because they were stones and they had a writing, an account of what happened, supposedly written by Eleanor Dare. But most of them have been debunked. They said these were not written by Eleanor Dare. They did, I don't know what kind of science they did on it, but they did some, probably chemical testing or whatever. And they said no. And there's only one stone that they said, well, we can't positively say one way or the other. So pretty much the Dare Stones have been debunked. You can't take those as truth either, saying, the stories of what happened to them. So still, even in the 1930s when this came up, we still don't know. That would have been nice to be like, hey, look, there really was a story that she wrote down. She left a note, but can't be proven either.
Did you mention how populous was the colony when he left?
They came with, I believe, 117 people.
Okay.
Yeah. So a good size, right? Not anything like we experience today, but a good size for a little town.
So if your family is an average of 4 people, that's like 22 families, 23 families.
Yeah. Yeah. And then hopefully, as they had hoped, right, it would grow over time as they thrived. But,
I could totally see there being not enough food and power struggles
Mm-hmm.
and drama and people just leaving.
Yeah,
Somebody
absolutely.
somebody murders somebody, everyone's mad, people split off and all
Mm-hmm.
go their separate ways. I think that would probably be my
Ooh, I like that. So like more from the inside, right?
internal. Like your leader leaves. Now you got a bunch
You
of just
power vacuum.
people, the men in the tribe the men in the colony trying to like be the new guy,
Mm-hmm.
and then no one can find food. Everybody needs a Snickers and is not themselves.
It's true.
People start fighting, fist fighting, threatening each other, and then just things hit the wall.
Interesting. That's definitely a possibility. I like that.
I don't know if you've ever been around men, and I'm not trying to say, stereotype or pigeonhole anybody, but when there's an instance where somebody needs to step up and a bunch of dudes want to step up, there stuff happens.
Well, and especially, hundreds of years ago, right? Our like identities and gender were very strong, right?
Yeah.
And like again, that power, having to have that power was definitely a male thing.
And men were providers.
Yeah.
Like if I'm waiting on another dude to get food for my family,
Mm-hmm.
I'm either gonna go get food or I'm gonna step up and be like, bro, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
back then it was 10 times as machismo. as
Yeah.
now.
Absolutely. So I'd say that is entirely possible. So the next theory.
Aliens.
Not yet. Not yet. The next theory is nice, a little bit nicer. It hints at a harmonious assimilation between the colonists and the indigenous people of the region, right? Going back to that Croatoan tribe. Amidst the treacherous landscape of Roanoke Island, the Croatoan extended a welcoming hand. They offered assistance and mentorship as they adjusted to their new lives. They had deep roots in the land, and their peaceful disposition found kinship with these newcomers. So they shared their knowledge, right? They exchanged customs, everything. It was a good relationship. So as the colonists were staring down the worst drought in 800 years, they found some kind of solace with the Croatoan tribe. The indigenous people shared their wisdom and taught them survival skills. It was basically like a safety net in these times of scarcity. The two very different cultures created a sense of camaraderie. Given this, the colonists could have sought refuge and actually integrated with their native allies when John White didn't return from his trip to England, because they had no way of knowing if he ever would. From their perspective, he could have easily been delayed or lost forever in a shipwreck, right? There's no way to know. So as the years went by and the settlers were faced with these mounting challenges, uncertain prospects, they could have made the bold decision to cast aside their English identity and just forge a new existence as part of the Croatoan tribe. Assimilation into the native way of life, adopting their customs traditions, it offered a promise of survival and maybe even a chance to thrive.
And like one of the earliest Thanksgiving dinners.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, if I was faced with that kind of choice, no problem. Yeah, let's do it. Right?
100%.
I'm going to live.
Yes.
So the theory of assimilation with the Croatoan tribe brings images of, right, harmonious existence. I love it. I love it. And I hope that that's what happened, because it's just such a nice
But we'll never know
picture.
because John White didn't get through that storm.
Couldn't get there. At later times, like when they started investigating this later, right, generations later, they went to the Croatoan Island and they actually found that there were Native Americans there that had gray eyes and fair skin. They also found the hilt of an English sword. So could it be that the colonists did in fact survive and thrive? I like to think so. The only thing that makes you go, well, maybe not. I didn't know this until I was researching this. Apparently, these tribes have a higher rate of albinism than you see in Europeans. So it's possible that when they saw these, they actually had albinism and were not just fair-skinned. So once again, it casts a shadow of doubt. Did it happen that way? I don't know.
Okay. But are there 12-fingered mountain men with red hair?
Maybe. We just haven't found them yet.
Space ghost alien pirates, mountain men with red hair.
Now, the next haunting possibility that emerges suggests a chilling twist of fate for the Roanoke colony. The theory that the Spanish, driven by their own ambitions and those territorial disputes, played a dark role in the colony's disappearance. This theory has it that the power struggles... This theory has it all. Power struggles, espionage, the clash of empires, it all casts an ominous shadow over the fate of the settlers. Because in the 16th century, the stage was set for a fierce rivalry between Spanish and English. They vied for dominance over the New World. Roanoke Island sat in a very strategic location, right? We looked at that map again. And it really would have had significant value for both empires. And since the Spanish were already well established in that region, they sought to safeguard their territory and prevent the encroachment from the English. Rumors swirled of spies lurking within the shadows, covertly gathering information and plotting strategies to undermine the English presence in the Americas. These agents, driven by zeal to secure Spanish dominance, may have set their sights on the Roanoke colony, perceiving it as a threat to their territorial ambitions. And there were, in fact, Spanish spies in the English court. So, entirely possible.
Sleeper cells of Spanish spies.
Ooh. Now, there is a clue here that this could have been the case. Now, again, John White, remember I had said earlier, he was an artist and map maker. So he created maps of Roanoke and the surrounding areas. And later, when people were looking at the maps, and again, years after all of this happened, by years, I mean, more modern day, looking at these very old maps.
Not like 3 years.
Yeah, not like, But they started looking at these maps, and what they found was there was a patch on top of it. Okay. So a little patch to cover up a section of the map. And that was actually pretty common practice because these maps took forever to make, right? Like, imagine having to draw all these maps, and then you find out I made a mistake. You cannot just remake it. You can't start over. So what you do is you put a patch on top. Okay. So that's great. Totally explainable. But where the map should have shown the location of Roanoke colony, it was actually patched over. And if you put it up to a light, you could see through it and see the mark for a fort. Okay. So this map was being concealed. And they looked at it, and there's actually something on top that has the same shape for a fort, but it's almost invisible. It's very, very faint. And some believe that this marking on the patch was actually invisible ink. So it makes you ponder the motivations behind this seemingly deliberate act of secrecy.
They had invisible ink back then?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, you can make, because you can make invisible ink just from like stuff you have around the house, right? You just need like acids and bases, like lemon juice and milk and stuff, and you can make your own invisible ink.
This is like some National Treasure, Da Vinci Code stuff right here.
I know. You're like, why would he do that? And some people speculate that happened because when he went back to England, maybe he suspected that there were Spanish in the court, and he didn't want them to know where that Roanoke Island was in the middle of all that Spanish territory.
Some crazy stuff right here.
Yeah. So, it's
This
very,
is
very
some
possible.
like
I know.
Illuminati stuff.
I know. Like I said, it's just fascinating. You're like, what's going on here? There's so many possibilities and no clues. So this is the Magical Mystery Hour. What kind of show would it be if I didn't at least touch on these supernatural theories?
Right. Of course. As we're saying in the live chat right now, I think we've got it narrowed down to super redheaded 12-finger space ghost alien
Yes.
pirate rangers.
I love it. I love it. So while supernatural theories surrounding the disappearance of Roanoke lack substantial and most of the time really any evidence, they have fueled speculation and folklore just over the years. And here are my 3 favorite supernatural theories.
Oh, we get a list.
1, alien abduction. As I've learned while researching these mysteries, when you can't explain something, the obvious answer is aliens. Some propose that the colonists were abducted by extraterrestrial beings. The theory suggests that advanced alien technology was responsible for the sudden disappearance, as the settlers were taken away against their will. This would explain the sudden departure and no note or clues regarding their fate. So, alien.
My side note, I love when I'm just sitting on the couch relaxing, I love to put on shows like Ancient Aliens.
Yes.
And just hearing the guy say something like, there were scrambled eggs on the table on a plate. Did somebody prepare breakfast for them that day? Or could it be there's a species of extraterrestrials who visited? It's just, I always wait for the, or could it be? And I'm like, yes. Yep. This is why I'm here. I'm here for it.
I love it. Oh, yeah. I love all the theories. I really do, too. And I like to listen to people talk and say, here's why. It must be. And like, it's like, okay. There's not, like, I want one day to see that show and be like, yes. That's,
Is it possible the ice melted? Or could it be a species light years ahead of us? Yeah, no, it could just be that the ice melted.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
But
it.
yeah, I love reading about those theories. They're so fun. The next one I love too. Time travel. Yes.
We need to do an episode on time travel.
We do. That is one I definitely want to do. So, in this extraordinary tale, the colonists of Roanoke, seeking a way out of their ill-fated venture and longing for a future, stepped through a temporal rift, leaving behind the 16th century altogether. Their destination? A future yet unknown. They became unwitting time travelers, thrust into an unfamiliar time where their presence would forever remain an enigma. Just imagine those Roanoke colonists adrift in a temporal current. And then they found themselves transplanted into a future world with infinite possibilities. So interesting.
Interesting that, like, you would assume they went forward in time.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't they have gone back?
They could have gone backwards. But
Well,
man,
they're
could
so
you imagine that? You're like, okay, we're going to go forward where things are better. And then you're like, oh, and we're back.
Oh, yeah, and the butterfly theory, butterfly effect.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, let's screw up all of these generations ahead of us by knowing how to make fire.
Right?
Or could it be?
I like to imagine if it was time travel, they went like even past us, right? Even further in our future because it hasn't happened yet. Like maybe they're in the year 2500.
There's some of that in my story.
Ooh, I love that. Now the third one. Witchcraft. Some kind of dark magic. According to this captivating theory, the Roanoke colony fell victim to the malevolent witches of the area. The colony was very isolated, which made it vulnerable. They were grappling with harsh realities of this new world, and they found themselves ensnared within a web of supernatural intrigue. Ooh. It is said that a coven of witches, either from within their own ranks or possibly from one of the nearby indigenous tribes, cast their wicked spells upon the settlers, sealing their fate.
Yeah.
Legend also tells of eerie sightings and unexplained phenomena that plagued the Roanoke colony. Some say that there were unnatural mists obscuring the movements of these mysterious witches.
I have unnatural mists in my story too.
No way. That's so cool. No. Others say that there were ominous whispers carried on the wind that would send chills up your spine. And of course, there were tales of unsettling apparitions and otherworldly presences plaguing the community. In this chilling narrative, the witches of Roanoke wielded their power to manipulate minds, control the elements, and bring forth calamity upon the unsuspecting settlers, one by one. Their nefarious intentions, either envy, revenge, or a hunger for power, cast a malevolent shadow over the colony, foretelling its ultimate doom. So that could go right hand in hand with your theory. Happened from the inside, maybe from that power, right? The power vacuum. One of them turned to the dark forces to try and take over. And then it all went wrong. As it often does, in these stories.
It makes me think of one of my favorite flicks, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where Alan Rickman, he's like a high-standing ranked sheriff of Nottingham, and he consults a witch.
Yes.
For his wisdom or what he doesn't know and he can't control.
Right.
He turns to her. Maybe there is, I like this take on it. There is a power vacuum going on, and there one or two of the men vying for power in the village turn to their fellow family witches.
That's it. We solved it.
That's it. Or could it
Magical
be?
Mystery Hour solved.
Magical Mystery Hour solved mysteries.
Oh man. I should also just add, because we talk about witchcraft and Native Americans, that of course this should all be approached with a critical eye. Witchcraft was and is often used as a scapegoat for societal fears and uncertainties. Whether it's the Salem witch trials or all the way up to the Dungeons and Dragons cult scares of the 1980s. They believed people playing Dungeons and Dragons were actually Satan worshippers, right? They're like, we're just trying to play a game. So witchcraft theory surrounding Roanoke serves as a reminder of those enduring holds that the supernatural narrative has on our collective societal imagination. But don't forget to balance that with the scrutiny of historical evidence and recognition of cultural context. So, in other words, just do your research, have fun, but also use your head.
We have the same kind of thing. Like back then, they would blame witchcraft. Now we have ancient aliens.
Now we just blame aliens. We're like, nah, witchcraft is fine. It's just aliens. Witchcraft, we know that didn't happen. Just aliens.
Were the eggs scrambled by his mother that morning?
Ooh.
Or could it be?
Tractor beams, right? They shook up the eggs.
Eggs were transported from another dimension.
So, whispers of supernatural forces, curses, and inexplicable phenomena tantalize our imagination. Did the colonists fall victim to otherworldly creatures? Were they plucked from existence by aliens, spirited away to an entirely different time? Such notions, though shrouded in uncertainty, ignite our curiosity and beckon us to peer deeper into the depths of the unknown. Whether the answer to this mystery is supernatural, political, or simply the ravages of nature and time, as the centuries pass, the mystery of the Roanoke colony continues to elude us. It's a puzzle from which we are missing the key piece. It's a siren song that beckons us to seek the truth amidst the echoes of the past. The Lost Colony invites us to ponder the alluring riddle of its disappearance. A riddle that may forever remain a magical mystery.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Amanda Benjamin.
Thank you. Whew.
Amanda, I'm always blown away by your writing skills.
Oh,
and I
thanks.
feel like we had a consultation with a guy when we were starting this podcast, and he was like, you should turn this podcast into a book.
That's right.
And we were like, we've done one episode.
Right one.
But like now, like I just thought of him again because I feel like all of the stories that you tell, you could put a book together, but with what you have written, because your writing style is so good and paints such a great picture, and you use the perfect word selection to keep us intrigued, and it's all very well put together, and it sounds like a book that I would read.
Ooh.
If every chapter was just the next story that you put out on this podcast, it's probably a book that I would get.
Ah, yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that.
You're an amazing writer.
Someday. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, that's fun. It's funny because like I usually have like David go back and read them, and I feel like it gets better each time. Because the first time he'd be like, okay, you need to like remember this and this tense and this, you skip tenses, and I laugh because everyone's like, well, we're talking, so that's gonna happen, right?
And there's a fun, delicate balance where it's like we're trying to make like a conversational podcast, but
right?
I'm listening to your the poetry of words that you have put together, and I'm just like, do I just let her talk? And then you pause, and I'm like,
okay,
say something. Should I?
Yeah, sometimes like, is he gonna say something? Okay, I'll keep going.
But no, I mean, if you took me completely out of the occasion, I think you'd have a really gold standing piece of work there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I said I feel like each time I get a little bit like better at it. I'm like, all right, like I'm starting to feel like I can do this.
That's great. Ladies and gentlemen, be on the lookout for Amanda Benjamin's Book of Mysteries.
Yes, can't wait.
Magical Mysteries, complete with a musical accompaniment podcast to listen to before and after.
Goodness, I love it. And I was with this one, I was like, oh, I almost changed my mind because it's like, is it too much history and not enough mystery? But I think it was a good balance.
No, yeah, we had witchcraft, aliens, ghosts.
I know.
All kinds of intrigue in there.
I know, and who knows?
Spies.
This is spies, yes. Spanish spies.
Sleeper cells.
Yes.
That was amazing. I'd never heard anything about that. And,
yeah.
Emily Thatcher asked in the chat, did you watch, or I'm paraphrasing because I'm asking for myself now too. Are there any popular Roanoke Island documentaries or series that you watch to prepare for that we could all enjoy as well?
Yeah, I watched a few just like YouTubers who did it. There are a few on the History Channel, but it was two people. Like History Channel is very different now than when it started. So I know a lot of them like are, like, okay, it's going to be 2 hours, but this is all aliens. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to get some other stuff. So I haven't watched those ones yet. Like I said, there are several History Channel and documentaries on it. I'm sure Discovery's done it, but I haven't. I didn't find that one documentary that I was looking for yet, but I'm sure it exists. But I'll look into it. I'll let you know.
Well, give it up one more time for Amanda Benjamin.
Thank you.
I have a pair of stories this evening. The first is very similar to Amanda's. There's mysterious mists and disappearing villagers.
Whoa.
my second one is just a baffling story about a man who disappeared into thin air. And I'm going to tell them right after Amanda sings her song that she chose for this evening. Right after producer Craig Jackman tells us what's coming up on the Vaudacity Network. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for producer Craig.
Thank you very much. And we got some great things happening here on the Vaudacity Network. First of all, to support tonight's show, if you would like to, you don't have to, but if you would like to, what you see in front of you for Magical Mystery Hour Episode 8 are the Venmo tip jars for both Amanda and Paul. We appreciate the fact that you're here with us tonight and that you are supporting us by being here, hitting the like button and sharing this with your friends and everyone else. But also, if you would like to, please feel free to tip. Upcoming on the Vaudacity Network, of course, I should also mention that we are currently with our podcast series that is live on the podcast platforms that you listen to. Episode 10, Mysteries of the Sea, where we're talking about the Bermuda Triangle and the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. And both those stories are incredible. If you missed them, or if you'd like to hear them again, go find the Magical Mystery Hour on your favorite podcast platform. Both intriguing stories. Coming up this Tuesday, that is tomorrow night, the 13th at 8 p.m. Pacific, The Panano Man with David Benjamin. Classical puns, or classical piano and fresh puns, or is it a classical pun and fresh piano? Whichever way, it's beautiful music by the Panano Man, David Benjamin, performed live right here on the Vaudacity Network tomorrow evening, Tuesday, June 13th, starting at 8 p.m. Pacific. And then it's time for Hunter Ackerman, Lovecast number 149, live acoustics, originals, and covers, Thursday, June 15th at 8 p.m. Pacific. And it's always fun with Hunter. He has not only his acoustic originals and covers, but he also likes to share a lot of different things with everybody. Become part of it. Greetings and salutations from Hunter. We look forward to seeing you on Lovecast 149 Thursday evening starting at 8 p.m. Pacific. Then Amanda on Demand, our very own Amanda Benjamin, will be joining us on Saturday starting at 8 p.m. Pacific with her show, Amanda on Demand, where you can request a song. She will sing your requests, but it goes on the wheel. Go to amandaondemanda.com, click on the button that says request the song. She will add it to her wheel, and who knows what will come up on the next show. So please join us. I don't know if Amanda has a topic for this Saturday coming up, but she will be there. And then Saturday after Amanda, we will have our next podcast of the Carganilla Online Variety Entertainment Podcast, or as we like to call it, The Cove. Live streamed recording session will start at 9:30 p.m. Pacific, Saturday, June 17th. So please join us here on the Vaudacity Network for our next Cove podcast, and it will be episode 4. And that's all that we have right now for everybody as promotionals for the Vaudacity Network.
Give it up for producer Craig Jackman. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Let me hear Amanda.
Yeah, tuning up my guitar.
Dave Hill's like, flat?
Yeah, it was. So I was like, I got to go through his chords and make sure my tuning's working.
Great ear, Dave.
I know, it was. That my D string was, actually my D string was sharp. My G string was awful. I know. What can you do?
Explicit.
Ah.
Do you need a moment to tune?
No, I just did. That's what I was doing, Mona. When you heard me, because usually I thought I had both of my. Yeah. No, I should. According to my tuner, I am now good. I muted one mic, but not the other. Yeah, no.
I've never
done
had
that.
My audio go out. Well, I thought I was muted. I've never interrupted anybody else doing anything.
I even looked over. I was like, yeah, I'm muted. fine.
Jamie and I got an ice maker that makes the little nugget ice,
Oh, yeah.
and you can chew it.
Now you're obsessed.
I can't, I'm doing it on the air right now, and I'm so embarrassed. But
That was like if you watched Paul's podcast that I was on, they were like, "Where'd Amanda go?" And I was like, "Sorry, I was eating a carrot."
it's just so satisfying.
It is.
Does
I
anybody
love
know what I'm
ice.
talking about? Like the little
Yeah.
bullet ice
Yeah.
that you can just, it's soft, and you can just roll it around in your mouth, and it's just so satisfying.
Yeah. I was like, I know they say it's not something that you should do all the time, but I do like to chew ice. So there is something very satisfying about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we talk about the important things on this podcast, like aliens and chewing ice, and
I know.
this specific episode is about vanishing.
Yes.
Vanishing, and it's tough to kind of be inspired with a song by that theme.
It is. But we did.
We have a
it.
duet coming up at the end of this episode, but
Yes.
here at the beginning, Amanda is going to play us a solo.
Yeah.
And
Now
what
I'll ask
were you
y'all, because you were listening, do you know what that is? You should know what that is.
tuning in E major?
Yeah, because I just played the little lick of the song, and I was like, oh. I'll see in the chat really quick if anybody... I know it's hard when other people are talking, so maybe you didn't catch it. But did anybody catch what I was playing? Let's see. I'm going to give it... We're on a delay, so you always have to I love when I ask, especially when it's just me on my show. I'm like, let me ask you guys a question. And then I'm like, I have to wait for responses. And now I have to wait 10 seconds with nothing to do.
No, this has been interesting. This is the first night I think we've ever... So Amanda runs the show through online broadcast system.
Right.
Is that what it called?
Yeah.
Right. And normally I can see Amanda and talk to her when we're doing the show.
Oh.
But tonight she's running it differently, and all I see is myself.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did not turn... I have my virtual camera on, but I didn't turn it on Zoom.
Oh,
That's probably why.
I thought you were just doing something new.
No.
So I've been watching the show, seeing what it looks like.
Oh, that's funny.
On YouTube, and so I know I'm in good hands, and you're taking care of what it's supposed to look like. But I can't actually see you when I'm talking to you, which is totally fine.
I could try and turn it on Zoom, but I'm afraid it'll ruin everything.
I'm enjoying. So what I was going to say was I'm enjoying the show tonight from two perspectives.
Yeah.
It's being your co-host and being an audience member at the same time, because I can't actually see you in real time. I can hear you.
Yes.
But I get to see what everyone else is seeing out there. And
Awesome.
It's a submersive experience.
It is. All right. Well, I'll go back because apparently they were like, well, we couldn't hear the song part. We only heard tuning, but maybe
we just heard you tuning.
Thought it was. So I decided I actually went kind of the same route as you. I was thinking about when somebody's left behind, when somebody leaves. And I did do that little stretch and decided to go with little Bill Withers and do some Ain't No Sunshine.
Love it.
Such a good
Ain't
song.
No Sunshine, as performed by Amanda Benjamin.
All right. Get this ready. And then I'll get that picture out. All right. Let me get my full camera. There we go. All right. Oh, yes. Okay. One more thing. So I can also see my chords a little better. Okay. Goodness gracious. All right. Here we go. This is Ain't No Sunshine. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away, wonder this time where she's gone. Wonder if she's gone to stay. Ain't no no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home anytime she goes away. And I know, 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 ought to leave the young thing alone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Only darkness every day. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away. Anytime she goes away.
Since I'm watching the YouTube live stream, I couldn't tell if you were done. If there was any, I know coming up.
One time through that was enough.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
Whatever, Amanda.
Thank you. I love that one. Oh, such a
Me
good
too,
song.
and you did it so well.
Thanks.
Like Nicole said in the chat, like the acoustic or the electric vibe,
Right?
and the chill sound.
I know, because I was going through it and I was, like, oh, I was deciding with that, to keep it like that, I was like, or should I be like, bum, bum, and like, right? Get into like, bum, right? Like, I was like, I don't know, like, go that way, bum, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. And then, I don't know, I was just like that little, it's so lonely.
Absolutely. Very well done.
Like, all right. So I went with that way because I was going back and forth, and I was like, nope, I like that lonely vibe.
Love it. I love to hear. We love to hear your progress every step of the way on that guitar and accompanying yourself.
Oh. I'm doing the thing, guys.
Doing it. Love it. Love it. Yes. So
thanks, you guys. Thanks to those in the chat who were like, I loved it. Thank you, guys.
Very fun to have this awesome, amazing online supportive community here on the Vaudacity Network. If you're listening to the podcast, we live stream on YouTube, as we mentioned at the top, but the live chat is always, it's so welcoming and so encouraging. And if you've been listening to the podcast and you've never joined us on YouTube, we encourage you to do that.
You absolutely should.
We have an amazing family, or as we call family, here on the Vaudacity Network that was forged through many years of enjoying the same kind of entertainment offerings, but really coming together in COVID when we didn't have a chance to get together in person. We all came together online, and we continue to this day. And it is can you believe it is mid 2023
No.
But we invite you to join us here in the live chat on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah, please do. We'd love to see you.
All right. Should we dive into some more vanishing stories?
Yes. I can't wait. See, I love this point in the show now because I'm like, oh, okay.
You just relax. You can chew on some carrots or chew on some ice.
David, bring me a snack.
Do it. Do as the gal says. All right. My first tale tonight is it's an 80-year-old tale.
Ooh.
That is not super well circulated here in like California, Southern California, but in other parts of the world, it's pretty well known, and it is baffling. if I may say so myself. Our tale begins in 1947. Two friends, Jeff Douglas and Thomas Albright, they meet up every year and they go hunting together in different parts of the world. This particular year in 1947, they set out to the Highlands of Scotland for their hunting vacation. Imagine having a friend that you can fly to another country with and go hunting once a year. That seems like a
that's a pretty good life right there.
Pretty cool relationship. Nice life. But they have this tradition where once a year they go to different places in the world and they go hunting together. Again, this is in the 40s and kind of a different world. They didn't have cell phones, they didn't have GPS, so they had to set out with backpacks full of anything they would need, including physical maps, compasses. Like today we can't even think about that, but
no, you're like it's all on my phone right here.
Paper maps.
Yeah, like I could pull up a compass right now if I wanted to, you know.
Depending on where the sun is.
Yeah.
And the magnetism.
I'm like, and wait, the sun rises in the east. And,
this was a whole different.
I had to think.
And
North
Nicole
Star.
Nicole says in the chat, back in the 40s, like how we were talking about, like, oh, it was so long ago, 125 years ago, there was the Spanish Philippine invasion.
Yeah.
No, so this was in the 40s. So they set out on their camping journey or hunting journey. And by the end of the first day they set out, they realize they don't know. They've lost their place. They don't know where they are. They're kind of toward the top of a mountain, which, you know, as you alluded to in the very first episode of this show, like you want to be at the top of the mountain if you're setting up camp.
Yeah. You can survey, you can figure out, you know.
Yeah, and there's a deep, heavy fog rolling in. So they decide, let's set up camp and figure out where we are in the morning. So they set up camp, light a fire, tell some stories. They've brought, of course, some whiskey in their flasks, and they have a great night together, just shooting the poop. They go to bed in the morning. They wake up. Mr. Douglas goes to relieve himself at a nearby tree. And as he's out on that excursion, he can actually see the fog is like lifting a little bit for the morning. And there's a village like right down the hill.
Okay.
They couldn't see apparently any lights from it the night before, and I guess the fog was just really heavy. But he comes back and his friend Thomas is making breakfast, and he tells him, "Dude, there's like a village like right down the hill. Either we didn't get very far, or this is just." So they look at their map. They pull out their map. They look at it, and there's no little village around on the map. They left from a bigger town that is clearly on the map, but there's no small villages on the map. So they have breakfast, and
it would have been nice because then they could have oriented themselves if it was on the map, right? Be like, oh, here's this village, like. Okay.
And that's what they want to do. They want to figure out where they are. So once they wrap up breakfast, they just say, let's leave camp set up. We're just going to take like a few things that we might need and go down to the village and just ask them where we are.
Right.
Then we'll come back up and regroup.
So I take it this wasn't like a huge mountain. Like it's something you could climb up and down.
It was a hill.
Yeah. Okay.
It was the hilltop.
My mind, of course, went right back to Dietlov Pass.
Sure. Yes.
This is not that.
So they throw some belongings in a knapsack,
Okay.
and they just hike their way down to this village. And when they get there, they are totally taken aback and surprised at what is going on. They clearly have walked into town on Ren Fair Day. Everyone's all dressed up in like old
What?
costumes, and there's food carts and music, live music playing, and everyone's super
it's like
happy.
zither music.
What's that?
I said it's all like played on the zither. Like who even has a zither nowadays?
Right. Yeah. I don't even know what a zither is. But yeah, it's probably
It's like
being
an
played
old timey
on-
string instrument. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, definitely.
Renaissance.
And so they come in and they're like, "Oh, hey." And the townsfolk are just like, "Hello, visitors. Oh my goodness. What can we get you? Do you want to eat this? Do you want to taste that? Come on in." And they're just like, we didn't bring any money. And they're just like, no, you're here on a very special day. There's a wedding this evening, and we're all just so excited about it. The whole town just shows up for this wedding.
Okay.
And Douglas and Thomas are just like, okay, yeah, this is not what we expected, but we're here for it. Like they've got people are handing them beers in big mugs. Like it's like literally like Ren Fair. Like they're all just decked out to the nines in the 1940s. They're just like,
I'd be
"Let's
like,
do
dress me
this."
up. I'm going to get an outfit now.
Right. So they just kind of like Jeff and Thomas are just kind of just like totally cool, roll with the flow, go with the flow guys. They're just like, okay, we came out here to go hunting, but this is neat.
This is a good story.
Yeah. And that is when Thomas sees this young girl. And they lock eyes, and it is like they have met before. It's like they knew each other in the past, but neither of them could explain it. And she's fair-skinned, dark hair, and just the most, I guess, like transfixing eyes, as he described. And he just felt like he knew her from somewhere. They just immediately fell for each other, and this weird thing started where Thomas's friend Jeff started to go, "Bro, you okay?" And he's just like, "Yes, who is this girl?" What we have not discussed yet is that Thomas was engaged back home in New York City.
Oh.
And now Jeff is like, "I'm not going to be here for any sort of cheating or that kind of situation. So maybe I need to help out my boy." So he would later say in interviews, he saw Thomas talking to this girl who was later, they found out her name was Fiona.
Okay.
And Jeff just kind of gets like lost in the mix. This party's going on, this festival, and people are trying to hand him beers, and there's other very flirtatious girls. So he starts to think, like, what is this town?
Right.
There's like really flirtatious girls and a big party going on, and it's not on the map.
Yeah. It's like Hotel California over here.
Right. So Thomas and Fiona apparently, so Thomas would later say in an interview, she asked me to go pick flowers with her. And he said he felt like he was under some kind of spell.
Okay.
And he kind of thought that maybe Pick Flowers was like a pseudonym. And so he thought against his better judgment, and he loved his fiance. Obviously not that much. But he said yes.
Okay.
So he goes with Fiona, and kind of like he was kind of disappointed, but she actually took him to go pick flowers.
We're actually going to the flower field.
So she hands him a basket. They go out and they find the best flowers, and they fill the baskets, and
They made daisy chains.
he recounts all of this, like when he gets back in his interview. And so they go back, and he's like, what do we do with these? And they're for the wedding, and her family's like very much involved in the planning of the wedding. So she says, we're going to take them to my house, and we're arranging them there. And so Thomas says, great. So they go to Fiona's house.
Mm-hmm.
They walk in, and he's just so smitten with her. And he says, like, it was like he was under a trance. That he kisses her in the foyer of her house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all just like a dream come true. He's kind of got this cognitive dissonance going on where he knows this isn't right, but it feels so right.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to figure out, like, check in with himself and think, like, what are we even doing here?
Mm-hmm.
When he notices, like, a calendar on the table. Like, it wasn't hung on the wall. It was like a table calendar.
Okay.
That was actually that date, but 200 years earlier.
What?
It was 1747.
What? Did they have calendars in 1747?
It wasn't described as a calendar. It was a log of important events.
Ah, okay.
And the date of this wedding was that date, but 1747. So Thomas is like, can you explain something to me?
Yeah,
this is really weird.
Wait a minute.
My buddy and I, we were hunting, and we came down here, and this town is like Ren Fair. And now I feel like I'm kind of in a trance, and this calendar says it's 200 years earlier. Can you please explain that? Fiona says, oh yeah, you should probably talk to our school teacher.
What?
And Thomas goes, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
She
exactly.
says, yeah, he can explain everything. Would you come with me? And Thomas is like, I'm not sure I want to. Can we find Jeff?
Yeah, let's go together.
And she says, yes. We'll bring Jeff too. And she looks him straight in the eyes, like locks eyes with him, and says, do you love me? And Thomas says, he can't explain why, but immediately he said yes.
Right.
And she said, okay, let's go. So they leave her house.
Okay.
Start to cross the courtyard where everyone's preparing for the wedding. They find Jeff, as Fiona promised. And they go to the school building.
Okay.
And he said it's like you're living in a dream, like in a movie set. The doors open to the school building, all of the desks are empty, and the school teacher is standing at the front of the room waiting for them.
Okay.
Are you all right?
I'm so intrigued right now. I'm like dying. What does he say?
So Fiona and Jeff and Thomas go in, and he introduces himself as a Mr. Lundy.
Like Monday? Lunady?
Lundy.
Interesting. Like, because I think, like in Spanish, it's lunes, is Monday, right? Like lundi,
Right.
I believe Italian, I think it's lundi. Interesting. And I think, and that has to do with the moon. So it's very interesting. Anyway.
Yeah. So Fiona says to him, I'm very much intrigued by our guest here, and I would like for you to explain our situation to him. And at this point, Thomas is like thinking cults, just weird indigenous witchcraft, low-lying haze that was there the night before. And he's just like, he can't explain why he feels this way for Fiona, and he can't like this is all just, as you can imagine, very strange.
Right.
So Mr. Lundy says, okay, if Fiona has brought you here, it is for a reason, and I will explain it to you. This town is very sacred, and we are very spiritual. We had a minister here that saw how the world was evolving and wanted to preserve our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So he said a prayer to preserve our town exactly how it is. Our prayer was answered.
Okay.
And thus, the town exists apart from time 99 years and 364 days each century.
Okay.
One day every 100 years, our world is vulnerable to the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
You came here on that day.
What?
Thomas and Jeff look at each other like, okay, we're out. So
Yeah.
they turn around and they leave the school building. They head right to where they came into the town. And as they like reach the outskirts, Fiona comes running and says, Thomas, please stay. I love you. And Thomas, like, he just feels this like unspoken thing for her. And he says, just come with me. Just come with me. And she says, I can't. If anyone leaves the town, the curse is broken and we all turn to bones, basically.
Oh, no.
And Jeff's just over here sipping on his whiskey flask, like, and he's watching Thomas, like, have this, like, really passionate conversation with this girl they met that morning. And Thomas is just like, I'm not going to stay here with you. That would be crazy. Like,
oh, no, I might have stayed.
if you come with me, like, I'm sure nobody's going to crumble to bones and bits. And just then they realized how dark it was getting, and the fog was coming back, and they wanted to make sure they could figure out their way back to camp. And she's like screaming at him, come to the wedding, please stay. And
it was their wedding.
It was, ooh, that's
whoa.
a good theory.
It would have been their wedding.
So Thomas is just like, I can't, I feel more strongly for you than I've ever felt for anybody in my life, which I can't explain, but I can't stay. And so Jeff just like finally smacks him upside the head and goes, we gotta go, man.
Right.
And so they go, like, they turn their back and they go, and it's this crazy thing where just like the fog descends and it gets dark, and they reach their camp right as nighttime is approaching. And it's like dusk, and they have to build a fire. They know like survival skills, so they get their fire going just as like sun is about to set, and the fog, like all of the fog in the area just lifts, and what was a darkening fog ridden sky just clears out, and the sky is clear. It's blue. I mean, it's like sunset.
Right.
And they look down, and the town is gone.
Wow.
Completely gone.
That is cool.
These two guys like thought they were going insane.
Yeah.
They thought that maybe they ingested something, as being suggested in chat. But once they started talking about it, and they both experienced the same thing.
That's always something, those shared experiences. Because it's like, again, if you're on something, your experiences are going to be different. You know, you'll have things in common because you're together and you see similar things. But it's like going to be like, no, she looked like this. No, she looked like, you know. I don't know.
So they make a pact. They're like, we're not going to talk about this.
Oh no. I mean, yeah.
At least as long as we can consider not talking about it. And they they're just like, we're not going to hunt. So they spend the rest of their time there. Just they find their way back to the village that they embarked from.
Right.
And they kind of like, they hit up the bars. They kind of like hint at this kind of situation, and none of the locals feed into it.
Right. They're like, hey, have you heard about this town where everybody's kind of Renaissance-y?
Like, what if somebody were to wander out into the woods and find themselves at a Ren fair? Wouldn't that be fun? Anybody heard anything about that?
Do you have any folk tales around here?
Right? Yeah. Have you ever heard of a Mr. Lundy?
Yeah. That's interesting.
So they're just like, they spend the rest of their vacation there just having fun at bars, and they make a pact to never talk about it as long as they possibly can.
Right.
So Jeff gets a call from Thomas a few months later.
Ooh.
Says they're back in New York City. They live in Manhattan. Thomas says, meet me at this bar. Jeff meets him there. Thomas has had a few. Like, he's pretty drunk. He has since let me backtrack. He has since broken off his engagement.
Oh, okay. I mean, after that kind of experience.
Yeah.
I understand.
He's really dealing with it.
Yeah.
And he tells Jeff, he says, I have to go back. I have to go back and find Fiona. Like, I can't stop thinking about her. Like, she is all I can think about. And Jeff's like, bro, we're not going to find her.
No, I mean, they told you it's once in 100 years. That's why she didn't want you to leave.
And Jeff, being the amazing best friend that he is just like, all right, man, I'll take you back. I'll show you that it's not there. And
okay,
like, we can move on with our lives. Hopefully, like, he knows, like, Thomas is going, he's going
right.
through
He's
it.
gonna, yeah.
So he takes him, they book their flights, they go back, they retrace what they can tell is their steps. They find their old campground, and they go down to where the village would be.
Okay.
And it's just, there's nothing there. Right. And so Jeff tells Thomas, see, man, it was like, I can't explain it. It was a time slip, like somewhere in time. Like,
right.
One of my favorite movies.
Love that movie. Oh my God.
Who knows what happened here, but there's nothing here for us.
Right.
Let's go home. Maybe call your girl and try and fix things. And they turn, and as they are going back up the hill, they hear a voice. No. Calling for Thomas. They turn around. The mist has formed. The fog has dropped. And Fiona is standing there. And Fiona says, Thomas, won't you come with me? I love you.
Oh my God.
Thomas turns to Jeff, and Jeff cannot freaking believe what is happening. And he just looks at Thomas and says, do what you want.
Yeah, I mean.
Thomas just shakes his hand, says, I love you, buddy. Walks into the fog with Fiona. They disappear. Thomas was never heard from again.
Wow. I am stunned.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the tale of Brigadoon.
Or Schmigadoon.
Did you know?
No, that's what it's based on? Or like...
No, that's Brigadoon.
That's the whole thing?
That's Brigadoon.
Oh, yeah. It is, now that you...
It's not based on it. I just told you the story of Brigadoon.
Yeah.
I just told you guys a famous musical from 1947.
You like rickrolled us.
I love that you're all here for it, though.
Yeah, I loved it. That was an incredible telling. Were those the same names? Even
Yeah, Tommy.
I
Tommy
haven't.
and Jeff.
I
and
haven't
Fiona.
like.
Mr. Lundy.
Yeah,
It's
you're
all
right. Like I haven't thought about that musical since I was a kid, except for Schmigadoon, which is funny because then they don't have any of the same names or time periods.
Brigadoon is a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical from 1947. I played Tommy at Moore Park College back in 2003. My friend Nick Pappas was Jeff. And I just stripped it down without any music and just told this story very dramatically. But
that was a really good telling.
That's the story of Brigadoon without the music.
That was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Like I said, I mean, I haven't, except for Schmigadoon. Like I'm trying to think if I've, like, I know like some of the music, but I don't think I've ever seen that whole show, which is weird because, you know, I love musicals.
I told Jamie, I said, I'm going to start telling Brigadoon, but as soon as somebody in the chat or Amanda says, wait, this sounds like Brigadoon, I'm going to stop and say, yeah, that was Brigadoon. But I made it all the way to the end.
Yeah, you did. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, like I said, I do give myself that, like, I don't think I've ever seen the whole musical.
Yeah.
I like to think maybe if I had, I would have gotten it. But you know what's funny? There was this, I don't know if you saw it. Maybe it inspired you, but maybe it didn't. There's this thing I saw on Facebook, and it was somebody who's like trying to get in touch with a girl. He was trying to like date this girl and like get her information from her friend. Right. Okay. And he's like, how do I talk to her? And she goes, yeah, you know, she's really busy because she's a nanny to this guy and he has like 7 kids. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, she's so good with them. And he's like, well, yeah, that's cool. And she's like, yeah, didn't you know she like plays guitar and she sews so she can make them clothes? And it was a whole like thing. And the best part was at the end, she's like, yeah. And she says, hey, have you ever seen The Sound of Music before? He's like, yeah, it's a really great musical. I really like it. And she's like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to rickroll y'all. I just thought it would be fun. Because it's about, when you told me your story was about a village, a vanishing town.
Yeah.
My mind went to Brigadoon and I was like, what if I told the story of Brigadoon realistically?
Love it.
Without any music. There's also, I left out the murder. There's a murder. There's all this stuff happens in the one day in Brigadoon, but I left a few things out.
One short day.
Listen, I do feel really bad about rickrolling you all, but I'm glad it was entertaining.
It was. It was a great story.
Sweet.
Nice. There's a really good telling of it. And it's funny too because you know what it reminded me of, and it's funny, like, again, that's how I know, like, Brigadoon wasn't even on my radar, because I kept thinking it reminded me of this episode from the original Star Trek.
Oh.
Yeah, there's this episode where they go on, like, Spock and Kirk end up on this planet, and they kind of, like, I'm trying to think if they were, like, kind of hippie-ish on this planet, but they, you know, very much like flower children, but not like 1960s hippie, just kind of in their, you know, being. And it's actually an episode where Spock falls in love and you see him expressing emotion and then jealousy and things because they fall in love with this girl in this strange planet, and there's all this stuff going on that they can't explain what's happening in their brains. But that's when you know that there's a problem because Spock gets emotional.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I was going to say, you mean Kirk.
I mean, Kirk also falls in love. But I mean, like, that's like every episode.
Yeah. But when you said Spock, I was like, I think she's confused.
No, it's true. It was Spock. And that's what made it weird. You're like, uh-oh.
Oh.
Let's see.
Oh, here's I'll share this. For anybody watching on the YouTubes. I just entered a Brigadoon search into my Facebook page, and here's myself in the Moore Park College. I'm playing Tommy.
Look at you.
the scene with Mr. Lundy where he's telling
Yes.
us the curse of the village, and I'm like, what? And Jeff's like, what? And fun fact, my co-star, my buddy in that movie or play,
Show.
Nick Pappas, he's actually a teacher at Moore Park College in
Oh.
the theater program, which is a lot of fun.
Very cool.
But yeah, we were the modern guys dropped into the Ren Fair.
That's so cool.
It was a fun show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. See, now I have to actually watch that musical.
There's not really anything memorable from that musical, but
I mean, now I'm like invested in this story. Yeah.
Tommy falls in love with Fiona. Fiona tries to get him to stay. He says no. He gets home from New York. He gets plagued. He goes back. Fiona's there, takes him back, and Jeff is like, okay, peace out.
Yeah.
That's the story. Okay,
Nice.
so would you like a real life
real mystery
vanishing story? I promise this one is not
real.
a Rodgers and
Never
Hammerstein
gonna give
musical.
you up.
This one is a baffling tale that occurred in 2006 and is still unsolved to this day. This is the vanishing of Brian Schaffer.
Ooh. All right.
Brian Schaffer was born February 25th, 1979. He grew up in Pickering, Ohio, which was a suburb of Columbus. And he's a tall, dark, and handsome dude. He's 6'3", 165 pounds, in great shape. He graduates from high school in 97 and enrolls in the Ohio State University, which is, of course, the staple college of Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
After 6 years of studying at the Ohio State University, he graduates in 2004 with a degree in microbiology. He's a smart mofo.
Right. Yeah, that's no joke. That's a rough.
Microbiology.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know biology. I couldn't even wrap my head around microbiology.
Yeah.
He decides he's very close with his mom, who I'll talk about in a few minutes, but he decides to follow her footsteps and pursue a career in the medical field. He wants to become a doctor. So at the end of when he gets his microbiology degree, he also is accepted into the Ohio State School of Medicine,
All right.
where he will spend the next 4 years working to become a doctor.
Okay.
2 years into that 4 years is the fateful night that we're about to discuss. Amanda, have you heard this tale before?
I don't think so. So far, it's not ringing a bell yet. I'll see. Because I've heard a lot of these, but his name sounds familiar, but so far the story does not.
So, Brian, the night that we're going to discuss, it's March 31st, 2006, but it rolls into April 1st, which, it leads to a lot of discussion later in the story because that's April Fool's Day. But you need to understand that this Friday was March 31st, that he finished his finals for this round of school and spring break began. So the next week he's going to be off.
Great.
I'm going to rewind just a second and set things up because before we get into the night in question, we need to kind of set up more stuff.
Right.
So Brian's dating another med student in the same program. Her name is Alexis Wagner, and they're very much in love. She knows, and her friends know, that he's got a ring. He's going to propose to her on their trip to Miami during spring break. And if anybody's listening and not watching, imagine Dane Cook and Jennifer Garner. Like, they're both very happy looking, beautiful brunette, tall people from Ohio. And everything in their pictures together seems to be going very, very well. They, according to friends and family, are very much in love and just having just a great life on their way to their future. The trip that I mentioned to Miami that they are leaving for on Monday is actually a gift from Brian's mother, and they are very much looking forward to it. As I mentioned, everyone's expecting Brian to propose on this trip. The trip was booked months and months and months in advance. Since that time, Brian's mother, Renee, was actually diagnosed with a bone marrow cancer that it took months. She fought it for months and months, but she eventually lost her battle with cancer and passed away on Monday. On March 6th, which was like 3 weeks before spring break, 3 weeks before the planned trip. Brian was very close to his mom. She inspired him to go into the medical field, and his friends said that he never showed that he was dealing with a lot of grief.
Okay.
But anyone close to him knew that there was no way this was possible. Like, they were very, very close.
Right.
His dad, Randy, and thank you, I'm jumping around on my script, but producer Craig is keeping up with me. His dad, Randy, they're also very close. They live, like I said, in the suburbs of town. And so they often have meals together, and it was a tough time this month of March 2006 where mom dies and Brian has finals and is preparing for spring break where he's going to propose. There's a lot of momentous, life-altering stuff happening, and not to mention like the stress that he must have been under through it all, on top of the grief of losing his mother. A lot of stuff on his shoulders. Totally normal guy with a bright future, but you know, when you have a lot of stress in your life,
it'll destroy you.
So, he's 8 years into his college career, about to propose to his girlfriend on a trip that his mom, who just died 3 weeks ago, gifted them. He hadn't slept. He pulled a few overnighters, according to his friends, to cram for the finals. And finally, it was the end of the day, that Friday, March 31st, breaking into spring break. He invites his dad out to a steak dinner.
Okay.
He and Dad go out, and Dad would later say Brian looked wrecked. He looked tired. He wanted to tell his son that he should just stay in and rest and get some sleep before his flight on Monday. But Brian told him he was going out bar hopping with some friends that night to celebrate the start of spring break, and his father, Randy, just kind of thought, my son's a grown man. I'm not going to tell him to go home and sleep. Because how annoying is that when your grandparents or your parents say, you look really tired. You should stay in and sleep.
Yes.
You probably never get that because you wake up like that. But
oh, man. You'd be surprised what kids tell you.
anytime I see an aunt or uncle or a grandparent, it's, you look really tired. And I go, thanks.
Thank you. Well, also, I mean, a part of it probably is that, his dad knows all that he's going through. It's like, okay, if he needs to go out and celebrate something, go do it. Because if that's going to make you happy, go for it.
The guilt of not saying to his son, maybe stay in tonight and get some sleep, would haunt Randy for the rest of his life, because that was the last time he ever saw Brian, was dinner that night. So Brian left. He went back to his apartment, regrouped, freshened up, got a new shirt on, went out. He was planning to meet his old roommate, Mr. Clint Florence, at...
I was going to say, is it Porter Stansbury?
Right?
That's what I was expecting.
So many similarities. Porter Stansbury. William Clint Florence, they were meeting up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, which was a popular bar at the Ohio State University South Campus, like along the border there. There's so many bars around this area. I like to describe it as like a city walk almost. In order, I might be jumping ahead, but in order to get to this bar, you have to go up a escalator inside the building, which is covered by security cameras. This is going to come in later, of course.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just going to go ahead and... So this is the view of the Tuna Saloona from the street. And on one of these windows that I pulled up earlier, I'm going to screen share, kind of like... Since there's so many similarities to the Ray Rivera thing, I'm going to show you a little street map of the area just so we get better acquainted a bit. We're going to drop in right here to, you see the Ohio State University at the bottom of your screen here. The actual bar is right in the middle of town. I want to say it's just moved it. So it's right off campus in this Gateway district. This is from the street looking up. It's in the second floor here. It's since gone, but this is the Google view now. But if you look like this way, there's bars, College Town. This way, it's bars, College Town. And you walk through here to get to this entry that takes you indoors to an escalator that'll go up, and I'll show you that in just a second. But this is the building where the bar is. At the time, this whole side of the building here was under construction. I'm not sure exactly what it is now. It's not the parking structure, but this was all a very heavy construction site. Can you see it? I can't see what you're seeing.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool. So at the time of the night in question, that whole backside of the building was just riddled with construction equipment and machines. And so if you went into this bar, the only way in was that doorway I showed you with the escalator to get up to the second floor.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's very important. It will be very important. So Brian lives 6 blocks away from this bar. He walks there.
Okay.
His buddy Clint drives and parks his car in the parking structure next door, and they meet there. They have, depending on the stories you read, 4 to 5 drinks.
Okay, that's significant.
But they're all shots. Like all
Oh,
these
okay.
dudes do is shots. They just take shots. So they take
Yeah.
4 or 5 shots at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, and they decide to then just walk around bar hopping and take a shot at every bar they find.
Ooh, okay.
So they go to 2 or 3 more bars and
Okay, now we're
take a
8
shot
drinks
at each
in.
one. At some point, like, so they started around 9:30. So early on into the evening, around 10 o'clock, he calls. I keep wanting to say Allison because I'm just stuck in Ray Rivera.
Yeah.
But he calls Alexis, and
Right.
he tells her, I'm out with Clint. We're hanging out. We're having a great time. She has gone to Toledo, which is like a 2-hour drive away. That's where her
Okay.
family lives.
Right.
She's going to spend the weekend there, and then they're going to meet up Monday at the airport and fly to Miami.
Okay.
So she's at her family's house. He says, I love you. Everything's great. I'll talk to you later. And that's the last time she's ever going to talk to him.
Ooh.
Around 10 p.m. that night.
Okay.
So Clint and Brian go bar hopping, have shots. They meet up with a mutual friend. Her name is Meredith Reed. She's got a car. She's sober enough to be like, why don't I drive you guys back to Clint's car at the Tuna Saloona, and we'll get another drink and finish out the night there. So she drives them back to Tuna Saloona, and they go into the bar. They arrive there at 1:15. They go in, they order shots, they have shots. There's a band playing. It's a totally typical college bar. Like, they serve like cocktails in fish bowls with big straws. Like,
Okay.
it's the live band, crazy, lots of people there on a Friday night, and it's the start of spring break. It's pretty wild in there.
Yeah.
Brian at some point says to them, I'm gonna go say what up to the band, and walks away. And so Clint and Meredith just keep drinking, having a good time, and final call rolls around. 2:00 rolls around. They haven't seen Brian. The bar's closing. The lights turn on. They're calling Brian.
Right.
He's not picking up. People are being ushered out. Clint checks the men's room. Brian's not in there. They go out and they wait out at the entrance of the bar.
Right.
Because you
He
have
has
to
to come
go
out.
down this escalator to leave.
Right.
Brian never comes out. They think everybody's gone. Clint goes in, asks the staff, is everybody out? I'm looking for my friend. They check around again. They can't find him. So he's gone. They try calling him. They try texting him. He doesn't respond. So Clint and Meredith just think, all right, well, I guess Brian did what Paul does at parties and just leaves.
I had a friend who did that too for a long time. He'd just be like, what?
Where'd he go?
Yeah.
So they just figure he just walked home
Right.
and didn't say goodbye. He's not picking up his phone. We'll talk to him tomorrow. So Clinton and Meredith leave, and the next day, Clint tries to call him. He doesn't pick up. Alexis tries to call him. He doesn't pick up. They figure he's sleeping it off.
Right. That was a lot.
He was pretty hungover.
Yeah.
All day Saturday goes by,
Ooh.
and nobody can get a hold of him. Randy's trying to call him. No one can get a hold of him. So Sunday morning, Allison is just like, it is really weird for him to not call me. I said Allison again.
I didn't even.
Alexis.
I think you
is
did
like,
earlier too. One of the other ones. Anyways.
It's really weird for him not to call me a whole
Right.
day. I hope he's okay. So she and Randy are the only ones with keys to his apartment. And Randy had already been in to check for him, and he wasn't there, his dad. And Allison goes down, and
Allison.
Alexis goes, thank you. Ray Rivera and Brian Schaffer disappear. Alexis goes down and like literally stays in his apartment just waiting for
Right.
him to come home. She cries into his pillow that night. They're supposed to leave for Miami the next morning, and she is just devastated that no one can find him and he's not answering his phone. So she thinks, I've got to, if he's playing some sort of game, or if he's like, he just needed some space, that the one litmus test, like, we're really going to figure out if something's wrong if he doesn't show up for the flight.
Right.
So she decides to go to the airport with her bag packed and wait for him. He never shows up. And so finally she calls Randy, Brian's dad, and they file a missing persons report. And now it's Monday night, and the last time anybody saw him was Friday night, early Saturday morning. So police are like, okay, yeah, that's pretty significant. Let's get on it. But we've missed 48 hours, 56 hours of time to be looking for him.
Crucial.
Yeah. So the manhunt begins, and they just search and search and search for him, beginning with the surveillance footage from that bar. So one thing that is interesting is that this particular area of hang on just a second with that, Craig, but this particular area of Columbus has more surveillance cameras than most cities.
This is still in like the college town, right? This is like
South Campus.
Makes sense. It's going to be pretty.
Absolutely. It is covered with surveillance cameras. So police are like, well, we'll find where he went at least.
Track him.
So here is the first footage they find. And this, thank you, Craig, is Brian. He's circled, and that's Clint and Meredith arriving with him. So they're inside the building now, going up the escalators to the entrance of the Tuna Saloon. It's kind of on a loop, but there's the three of them. They're having a good time. Nothing looks amiss. And this is the second to last footage ever seen. Now, this is the last footage ever seen. This is later. This is at 1:55 a.m.
So just before closing time.
Just before closing time, there are police officers at the top of the stairs making sure nobody hurts themselves or gets unruly. And Brian can be seen speaking to a couple of females and then going back into the bar. And that is the last piece of footage that is seen of him. The two females, the police or the investigators then determine are a couple of acquaintances of he and Clint. And they were questioned, and they said that they were all pretty toasted. Brian had offered to walk them to their cars, but once they got outside, the females realized there was something else inside the bar that they needed to get or see, and they went back in, and he followed them back in. And here we go. You can see it now just a little bit slower. This is the last footage that was seen of him. It's magnified. He's talking to them. Is he getting a little friendly? What's going on here? They go back in. He follows them. You'll see off screen then down into. So the camera that we're looking at is essentially just placed over the door of the bar, looking out. You can play it one more time, Craig, if you want. I see you hovering there. It's just so interesting to see like the last footage.
Although, like, I want to see him disappear. Like, you don't see him disappear from the video. You see half of him disappear and then it stops.
It's just this edit from this video.
Okay. I'm like,
like he walks.
For all I know, he could turn back around.
Yeah, no, he walks all the way back down out of frame, and that's the last time anybody ever catches him on film. So What other entrances or exits are there?
Yeah. Like,
There's
are there windows? Is there like a fire escape?
there is a second floor balcony
Okay.
that people thought maybe he went and jumped off,
Right.
but police check all the surveillance footage from the area and they would have caught it.
Okay.
He
So you
did
can,
not do that.
it's cameraed, surveyed, surveilled. I mean, there's the word I'm looking
Under
for.
surveillance.
Yes. Okay.
There is a back service exit
Okay.
that leads to an elevator that goes down halfway to a set of iron wrought stairs that go down another halfway
Mm-hmm.
to a door that opens up to where that heavy construction area
Right.
was. There's no surveillance camera on the door, but there are several surveillance cameras in the construction area
Okay.
that would have caught him leaving if he did.
Right. And if that was the case, he would have had to have like planned that, because it's not something that you would just know as a patron. Like, I'm just going to go down this way and then this hall and then this hall and then I'm going to get outside to an area where you can't see me. It's not something that you'd have to plan that.
Yes.
There's just no way.
And also, as investigators would say, a sober person would have a tough time getting out of there.
Yeah.
If he didn't know the place and he was drunk,
Mm-hmm.
like, he would not have been able to get out of the building, let alone that
Right.
construction site, off camera
Mm-hmm.
without being seen.
Did he know anybody who worked there? Like, I don't know. I mean, like, did he have like a bartender friend, or was this just somewhere that he just was that night,
I don't know anything about any personal relationships with employees, but employees do come into question.
Oh, yeah, because I'm like,
just a little bit.
if something happened, like, because my thought is like, okay, so what if somebody like murdered him in the bathroom kind of thing, or like like chloroform or something.
Right.
Then I could see how they'd be like, okay, I know how to get around this place, but I don't know.
So some theories are, could he have been drunk, found his way out the back door into construction, fell, knocked himself out. Construction crew comes in the next morning, haven't had their coffee yet, pour cement on him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just there forever now. Police looked into that. They said, like, based on the construction crew's records, there was no cement being poured.
Okay.
So other people think maybe he found his way into a dumpster that was then taken out away from the construction site.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, I'm skipping ahead now. There's a lot
Yeah.
more fun stuff, but like, that might be a possibility.
Right.
And also, the fact that so much time had passed from when he went missing to when police actually started
Right.
looking into it is the biggest thing in
Yep.
this case. So much could have happened in that span of time
Yeah.
that we have just a giant hole in the story. But
Mhm.
we'll try and piece it together here as we continue to look at what happened next.
Yes.
Well, police, of course, when people go missing, you check your bank cards, you check your cell phone, see what's going on. So they dive into Brian's cell phone records and nothing. The last ping on his cell phone was off a tower the next town over,
Okay.
which is kind of normal.
Yeah.
And there's no activity on any of his credit cards or his regular checking account. No money has been taken out
Right.
since his shots bar hopping.
And that rules out things like a robbery gone wrong, because
Yep.
somebody probably would have done something,
Yeah.
Although maybe, I don't know, maybe if you try to rob somebody and accidentally kill them, maybe you don't want to. Maybe you're smart enough not to use their stuff. I don't know.
I don't know how smart murderers are.
Those murderers.
So the girls are identified and they're questioned, and they just said, no, we went back into the bar. They were like, honestly, I don't remember. I was a little drunk, but all we remember is he was going to walk us to our cars, but then we all just went back inside.
Right.
But they don't remember anything else. Police take initial statements from Clint and Meredith and Dad, and after a couple days go by, they want to have another interview with everybody, and they want to have everybody take a polygraph.
Right.
And everybody agrees to it except for Clint.
Oh.
His old dorm mate that took him out that night.
Ooh.
He says, I told you everything the first time. I'm sorry. Like, I don't have anything else for you. And his lawyer's like, yeah. he's good. He's not going to take a polygraph, which is totally fine. You don't have to.
No, you don't. It's just always suspicious, you know?
A little sus.
It is. And I get, like, I mean, polygraphs are problematic. And so I get that, like, some people are like, no way, I don't want to do that. It's weird. It doesn't always work. It can cause more problems. But it is suspicious.
Yes.
I don't think I could do a polygraph test because I am so anxious with those kind of things. They're going to be like, what's your name? And you're like, oh my God. Okay. You're like, what's your baseline?
I had to take a polygraph for my job.
Yeah.
And it was the most stressful thing probably I've ever been through.
Right.
And that was just to get a job. I can't imagine, like, my friend went missing and no one can find him. And I'm maybe a suspect. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. Yeah.
So time goes by, and there's just no evidence. Like, police gather surveillance footage from like every camera in the area. There's no trace of Brian. They actually have, I guess they had like ID scanners to get into the bar.
Oh, okay.
But not to get out.
Yeah,
but they were able to go through the surveillance footage that they had because the place was covered. They accounted for everybody leaving that scanned in.
Okay.
Except for Brian. They never found footage of Brian leaving. Okay. They considered like maybe he was wearing something different, like magic costume change in the bathroom or whatever.
You put on your hoodie.
But they said no. Like they looked at every person that left, and they determined who each person was and what they were wearing, and there was no unknown person leaving.
Yeah.
Brian just never left. And so all trails just freeze because there's just nothing. Months and months and months go by. Alexis has this new routine where she calls his cell phone every night before bed just to hear his voicemail. It goes straight to voicemail. One night, September 11th, 2006, it rings.
What?
After 6 months of it going straight to voicemail, she dialed the number before bed, and it rang 3 times.
Okay.
And then went to voicemail.
And it was his voicemail.
It was his voicemail.
So it wasn't like the number got changed.
No, it was his voicemail. So she goes directly to the police, and she's like, someone's got his phone. Someone's got his phone. And the police look into it. They can't get any information. So they contact his wireless provider, Singular, and say, what's up with this?
Right.
And Singular says, that happens sometimes. It's probably just a glitch.
That happened in the MH370 story.
Yes.
That they would call, and somebody even said that they got a phone call from their family who was on the plane.
And that is still goosebumps.
Oh God, I know. I can't imagine.
Still goosebumps.
Yeah. And you're like, is it a glitch? I don't know.
Or is it red-headed aliens?
Ooh. Pirates. Alien pirates.
So the trail goes cold again. Couple years pass. Brian's father, Randy, is out in the front yard doing stuff one day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very windy day. And a branch gets torn out of the tree in his front yard and kills him. Which is tragic.
Yeah. Oh my God.
To get killed, murdered by a falling branch in your front yard. But the interesting thing that this brings about is that Randy's obituary is featured on a website.
Mm-hmm.
And people can comment and leave their condolences.
Okay.
And there pops up a comment that reads, "To Dad, love Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands." Which brings up a very interesting theory.
Mm-hmm.
What if the weight of the world was crashing down on Brian and he had to just leave?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a passport to go to the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
And based on everything that was going on in his life, the stress that he was under, the loss of his mother, the pressure to propose since everybody knew he was going to,
Mm-hmm.
he just walked away, find a way to slip out,
Right.
and walked away from his life. That is a theory.
Right. Which is an understandable one.
Sure.
The only thing I'm curious about is like, so this is a post 9/11 world. Like, getting a plane ticket that is not in your name and getting on that plane through security, like getting these places without documentation is really hard.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Not that it's impossible. People do it. You know, they're like refugees who fly and, you know, again, not impossible, but it would be really hard. It's not to say that though he couldn't, because if that did happen, as I said earlier, he would have had to plan this so meticulously. I'm going to go in this bar where they have all these cameras, but this area doesn't. And if I get out to the construction, I can make it like X, Y, you know, get in this spot, and this spot, and this spot, and get out, you know, like, I can't imagine how hard that would be.
Couple of intriguing thoughts in the live chat. Your husband David Benjamin says psychotic break, just like Ray Rivera's story. Just snap and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after who knows how many shots one night.
Yep.
Dave Hill says sailing to the Virgin Islands.
I did think about that. If he had access to a boat, can you? I don't know how far it is.
Nicole says he planned it out with Clint.
It is possible, which could be why he didn't want to take the test.
That is actually one of the leading theories.
Mm-hmm.
So keep your reasoning in mind as I say the next couple of points. So the police and look into the comment left on the obituary, and they're actually able to, through warrants, find out where it was posted from. And they found it at an open internet cafe on the Ohio State campus.
Right.
So they just chalked it up to just somebody close to the situation.
Could be Clint.
Trying to mess around with or throw a stick in the spokes of the investigators and just pretending to be. Because if it's Brian, he's not hanging out on campus anymore.
No, you wouldn't go back there.
They rule that out as actually being plausible.
Okay.
Fast forward 10 years to 2018.
Ooh.
Something circles around the internet. There's a homeless man in Mexico. Doesn't know who he is. Doesn't know where his family is, where he belongs. And this hits the internet and lights the world on fire as far as people who are following this case have been watching it for the past 10 years. It gets sent to the FBI. The FBI looks at it and does comparisons and says, based on our computer technology, we can say for a fact that this person is not Brian Schaffer. A couple years pass. Someone else is visiting Tijuana, is very familiar with the Brian Schaffer case, and finds another American homeless man and says, I just found Brian Schaffer in Tijuana. And this guy looks a lot like him. And if you pull it up side by side,
I was going to say, I want to see side by side.
Based on like, if you, change the camera angle.
Yeah, that's I wish, because like what I noticed in the picture from Tijuana is like his nose is just a little bit crooked at the bottom.
Yeah, he could have gotten a fight.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I wonder.
This goes back to the FBI, and the FBI looks at it and runs it through their process and says, this is also not Brian Schaffer based on our technology. I got to think like age has something to do with that too. Like,
right. I mean, adding the beard, and like I said, if he did like break his nose at some point, it's going to look a little different. But like the hairline was very similar. I see how you're like, that might be him.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
So today it is still a puzzling case. The easy possibilities are that he, as we just mentioned, just decided he was done with this particular life and wanted to start a new one. Found a way to get out and do that, make that happen. The other easiest possibility is that he wandered out the back somehow and met his demise in the construction site and got just, what's the word? I just disposed of,
right?
In some sort of construction heap.
Right.
No one even knew he was there, and he just got shredded or dumped or compacted and disposed of.
Right.
Other interesting theories are that while Brian was talking to those girls outside, he upset somebody.
Right.
And that caused some sort of altercation in the bar in the last few minutes before closing time. And maybe the staff was involved, and he ended up, on the wrong side of a bad argument, an accident, a fight, and the staff happened to dispose of his body knowing that the construction stuff was going on.
Right.
Somehow.
Yeah, because like if he was dumped, it has to be somebody who really knows that layout, like the back of their hand. Because you said there are cameras along the way, right? Like,
yeah, there are cameras in the construction site, but none on that back door.
Right, but like because you said you had to go like down an elevator and then down like several hallways. Did you say there were cameras down those hallways?
No cameras in the hallways. No, just on the outside of the building.
So you wouldn't even see like somebody getting into that service elevator?
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a camera somewhere in the middle of that. So yeah, like I said, it's not going to be something he knows. I think that somebody had to have taken him out there.
Yeah. Another prevalent theory based on people close to the incident is that the owners of the Ugly Tuna Saloon were into dealing drugs to students as well.
Oh.
And Brian was somehow involved in some sort of aspect where he could have been a threat to them. And they wanted to get rid of him somehow and did. That's a theory. That's a rabbit hole that's out there. Ugly Tuna has since moved. They closed that location and moved like 3 blocks over.
Okay.
Opened up a new spot, but still original owners. I don't think they've ever been questioned by the cops, though.
Okay.
Recently, just a few months ago, somebody came out with a brand new revelation based on the the surveillance footage.
Oh.
They slowed it down, zoomed in, really tuned it up, and they believe they can see Brian slipping something into one of the girls' purses. As you see here. It looks like it'll replay a couple of times.
Yeah.
Maybe he takes something out of his pocket, and as she moves away, he's going to take a look at it and then just slip it into her bag. I don't know if he's just drunk and getting friendly.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
He's slipping something into her bag. But this lit the internet on fire.
Right.
Saying, it looks like he slipped or something. And
that could go back to that drug deal thing.
Well, so the internet was like, he put his phone in her bag. So he couldn't be tracked or pinged.
Mm-hmm.
But the one problem with that is she never found his phone.
Right.
And if she did, she would have given it to the police.
Mm-hmm.
So
and people were calling, right? So like it would have been ringing. She would have noticed it. Been like, oh, yes. Look.
Definitely would have alerted her.
Yeah, but that's why I wonder more if it goes back to like drug dealing or something. You know, could that be why they were talking? Was he, handing something off and they were trying to be discreet because they know there are cameras everywhere?
Could be.
And then it could be a drug deal gone wrong.
Why a med student would be involved in dealing drugs. But who knows?
Student loans. That's how it happens.
That could lead to any sorts of horrors.
Yes.
The last thing that everybody hangs on to is just that Clint knows something. Clint was his roommate in the dorms. They went out that night. If there is anything that has not been uncovered that could be, Clint knows it, and he won't take a polygraph, and he's lawyered up.
Right.
And that, the theories of what Clint might know abound. You could go into a deep rabbit hole on that. But sadly, with the curious tale of Brian Schaffer, we may never know what happened to him, where he went. He seemed to vanish into thin air. Now both of his parents are gone. Alexis has since found new love and married and has children, and it was very difficult for her, but she had to move past that and go on with her life. And I just hope in the case of Brian that someday there's some sort of hint, just like in Ray Rivera's case, somebody comes forward with some piece of information.
Somebody knows something
that can solve the mystery of the disappearance, the vanishing into thin air of Brian Schaffer. And that is that.
That was a great story. Nice find.
Almost as good as the hunting in the Scottish Highlands story.
Almost. Man, that was a good one. It's funny, too, because so as you were telling that story, like I kept thinking of all the things it did remind me of. Like now I'm like, wow, that story, like I feel like that story has to come from something like common root. Because that is I feel like I've heard that story or like similar versions of that story. I was like, oh, this is reminding me of that Star Trek episode, which Craig reminded me, which I already forgot. He said it's called, All Our Yesterdays. If anybody wants to watch that episode. I don't know how similarly it was. And I was like, oh, and it reminds me of this other story, which if we were to actually do time travel, I was like, oh, that's if I do short stories. I was like, that there was an interesting story that reminds me of that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's wild when there's just no answers.
Yeah.
And in like we rely so heavily on surveillance footage that so many times, like in Ray Rivera's case, we're like, well, if only the surveillance cameras were working that day.
Yep.
And in this case, they were all working and just disappeared.
Yeah. That's
wow.
nuts. I just, like, yeah, even when they all work, sometimes it doesn't matter.
Well, we wrap up each episode with a duet.
We do. Did you want to? We were going back and forth on like what to do. We had,
I thought it would be a great idea since Brian disappeared at closing time at the pub. We would close the show with closing time. And then I started to play it and I went, this just feels not right. Let's think of something else.
It's got to be
so
another
I
one.
ended up recording without Amanda's permission my half of a duet that she would have to complete as I pushed over. I nudged in her direction. One of my favorite songs that she sings is Norah Jones' Come Away With Me. And I thought that we could stretch that into the theme of disappearing and going away. I don't know if someone's running away or eloping or disappearing by their on purpose or just by the circumstance. But Come Away With Me is kind of like disappearing, right?
It is. And it, relates to your Scottish hunting story. Somebody's calling you to come away with them.
Yes, Fiona. Tommy, go with Fiona.
Yes.
Just
go and be happy. Come on.
Well, I recorded my part of it at 2 a.m. this morning, and I pushed it over to Amanda and said, do what you can. I gotta go to bed.
At some point, I would like to try and like find the harmony. I was trying to find the harmonies, and so I was like, you don't have time for this.
Gotta get it ready for the show.
I was like,
do it live.
We'll do it when I know. I thought about it. I was like, I could sing it live. I won't, but I could.
I thought you might. I was like, she could do the playback and sing along.
I was, but no. It's like, it's okay. I know the song. I record it. Like I said, I think it's such a beautiful song. I love it. So I was excited that you picked that one.
I'm excited to hear it.
All right. Well, here we go. This is Come Away With Me. Come away with me in the night. Come away with me and I will write you a song. Come away with me on a bus. Come away where they can't tempt us with their lies.
And I wanna walk with you on a cloudy day in fields where yellow grass grows knee-high. So won't you try to
come away with me and we'll kiss on a mountain top.
Come away with me and I'll never stop loving you.
And I wanna wake up with the rain falling on a tin roof.
While I'm safe there in your arms, so all I ask is for you
to come away with me in the night.
Come away
so pretty.
I loved that.
I know. So nice. I was like, ooh.
I always feel like weird saying I loved something that I
I
did.
know.
But
Same. I know. I always feel better though if it's a duet, because then I'm like, oh, it's like the duet that made it nice, not me.
no, I think it was nice as a duet.
It was.
I've never heard it
great.
as a duet before.
No.
And, we tried it. And
Yeah,
I thought
and it works. Like I said, and hopefully at some point we'll figure out some harmonies to add in or something. That'll be great.
Well, that was a very unforgettable night of things that go away and you forget about them as they vanish.
Yes.
Before we get to our final titles that producer Craig has to share with everybody, Amanda and I will first say thank you to all of you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of the Magical Mystery Hour.
Our next episode will feature more mysteries.
If you enjoyed tonight's stories and don't want to miss out on the next, please be sure you are subscribed on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform, and we'll feed you, bring you, provide you with all the best music and comedy that we possibly can.
Please leave the show a positive review and help more people who like this kind of show find our Magical Mystery Hour.
We'd like to thank producer Craig Jackman and our social media team of Dari Mills, Christina Beelan, Heather Dingus, Amanda Benjamin, Emily Thatcher. It keeps on growing. All of you for your promotional support.
And thank you again to this episode's sponsors, Emily Thatcher and Kelsey Blaine Gibson. And a big thank you to David Benjamin for composing and recording our theme music.
Until the next mystery.
Good night.
Have a great night, everybody. But stay tuned for these very important slides. Thank you, producer.